Right, this is what we're talking about today for the second week, pastoral care. Now, I call it pastoral care and Maxine calls it pastoral care. Both are right, I'm declaring. They're both right. They're both about walking alongside people in church and outside church. So whichever one you prefer, just run with it. You know, it's potato, potato. Who does actually say potato? It's
Never
like tomato, tomato.
Yeah.
It's like bath and bath. I think that's better. So, second week in a row, talking about pastoral care. And as we promised last week, so last week we looked at pastoral care in the Bible, and this week we're looking at it here in River Maidenhead. And for that purpose, Maxine and I am going to just chat about it because we're both part of the makeup of our team here at River Maidenhead, and we're just going to tell you a bit more about it. So how it came about was that about a year ago, we as a leadership team recognised that as our church was growing, we needed something in place that was a bit more organised than what we had. And so now pastoral care has always happened organically in the church. But when you grow and then you get, a wider range of pastoral care issues and needs, you need something more robust in place than just an organic system. And we wanted to make sure that no one slips through the net and also that our pastoral carers are looked after because, they're on the front lines on this and they really need looking after. So I went looking for resources and I found a course that's called Setting Up a Pastoral Care Team. What a coincidence. It's run by the Association of Christians in Counselling. So I booked myself on, but I didn't want to do it on my own. So I've asked Maxine to come alongside me and she said yes. And that's how it all started. So Max, do you want to tell us a bit more about the course?
Yes, I do. So I just had this, when Heike said to me, thinking to do this, I just felt, yay. And the course was obviously just written for us with a title like that. And I had a real sense of excitement about it, to be honest. I had some fear, which was really addressed in the course. So my main fear was, if I'm not careful, I'll burn out because I'll take on too much and like that. And so that was my fear, but I had that overriding sense of excitement. And especially because I was thinking, it's not just our church that need pastoral teams and so on. And there's this whole course that's been designed specifically to give pointers. So that was really, really good. And so the main thing, I keep coming back to this word sustainability. So for me, that's sustaining my ability to support others through my, feeding myself through God. Okay, so can we have a slide change, I think? If you feel you have... Okay, maybe not. Framework.
Don't worry about what's on there. It's just kind of gives you an idea of what the course gave us, of kind of giving us a framework for things to kind of going, okay, so this kind of flow you could use.
Yeah. So if you feel that you have a pastoral calling, like I was finding through this course, it's okay actually sometimes to say, no, I'm at capacity. I can't do that. But because we've started this more structured pastoral care team, there's that sense, well, if I can't do it, somebody else will step up. Somebody else is there. So many hands and hearts make light work. And I like a good old framework like this on a page. So that excited me too, to be honest. And of course, this pastoral care for everybody. I was talking to somebody in the room, and she was saying, "But that's not really pastoral care." And what she was doing was giving some lifts to people. And I said, "Well, that's absolutely pastoral care." And so you might find that along with everybody in this room, there are things that you do, tiny things maybe in your head, that actually really make a difference. Okay, we'll do that. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, Heike, I'm going back to you now.
No, you need to explain.
I need to
that
explain.
bit.
Okay, right. I'm going to read my notes. So there are some of us, and Heike, you said you and me, and we've got Jonathan as well. Okay, vocabulary.
So
Okay.
the course gave us some vocabulary to put onto teams, which was few, some, and all, which it uses and actually helps to put it into perspective, kind of the teams and how they work and who is in a team.
So all of us are called to help each other. Some of us in the church are sort of perhaps doing the fivefold ministry, which you mentioned, are drawn more to taking on a few more things and looking after each other in the team. And then all of us, the few, you, me, and one other, Jonathan, okay, are sort of overseeing that whole structure. Yeah.
To kind of resource and lead people.
Yeah,
exactly. And it comes back to that everybody, is called to help, step into pastoral care. It's like last week we looked at a load of scriptures, but again and again it said that pastoral care is everybody's job, and that we should all look after the flock, which is what pastoral care pastor comes from shepherd. So the teams. So the course gave us the vocabulary, and then we, sat there and like, who are going to be this few and the some? And so the two of us recognised that we would be a good fit for the few, but we needed someone else to get alongside us. So we asked Jonathan. I'll do the clicking. It's like it's going so fast. So we asked Jonathan to come alongside us, and he said yes. So that's the few that are kind of looking after the pastoral care team, making sure, checking in with them that they are okay and they're not doing too much, or if anything comes in, like we could get a request in, then we will talk about who would be the best fit to get alongside that person. And also to review if, long-term situations and going, okay, so are we doing too much? Do we need to do less? Do we need to bring someone else in on this particular case? So that's our job. Sadly, Jonathan can't be here today, but we've got his picture up there. Yeah. I asked everybody to send me a picture of the team, and I said, if you don't send me one, I'll find one. I should have found something embarrassing, shouldn't I? But I wasn't that mean. Right, do you want to tell us a bit more about the sum?
Yes, so the sum we have already, and has been going for a long time, small groups. And it seemed to us that this was part of a pastoral structure anyway, or could be drawn on. So we set about looking at the small group makeup and who in each small group could have some pastoral gifting and might be the person to say that person for that small group would be overviewing their small group. And that worked perfectly, actually. It was really a brilliant fit. And so, when things actually sort of seem to work perfectly, you just know it's God-given and this is meant to happen. So we have, in all, we have 13 pastoral people in the small groups. 13, yes.
We set out to have 12.
Yes.
And then one extra snuck in.
And 13's a very lucky number, my maths teacher used to tell me. So 13 people. And looking at those faces on the screen, I would hope that you all would recognise somebody. And can I say this bit? If you're not in a small group, then, it's really a lovely thing to be part of. It's a lovely small family within our big family of church. And I would really recommend that you join a small group, from the pastoral side through to the social side and so on.
Fran's
Stand
husband,
up,
Ian.
Ian and Fran, yes. So yes, they were in the Isle of Wight. Well done. Okay, but they're not anymore. Okay. And something sometimes that is hard to do is to recognise yourself when you really need some support or some help with some practical tasks. It's a big thing to go sometimes to, one of these people or somebody at church and just say, oh, I need some help. That's partly why we've got Prayer Place, and also why we've got these teams that you can turn to in your small group. And please do brave it if you need some help or support or whatever it might be, a word of encouragement. Okay?
Yeah, so, reach out to anyone on the screen or the leadership team. And even if you're not on a small group, this doesn't exclude people who are in a small group. It's just small groups are our safety net for people that, so they don't slip through the net. But we do, quite actively keep an eye on people who are not in a small group. Yeah. But it does make it harder for us. Does. So it's like being in a small group is just a safety net for us. So there's all of the pastoral care team up there. Do reach out to any of them or the leadership team. But when it comes to things like practical help that Max has mentioned, that is when all of us come into play. And this church family, I love this picture. It's so wonderful. A real church family together. So this is where there are so many things that all of us can do for each other that fall under pastoral care that you might not even be aware of that you're doing it. It's the checking in on each other, the walking alongside each other. That was all part of pastoral care. And again, the course gave us gave us some examples that most pastoral care. So it gave us this. I love a diagram. This lovely diagram, and as you can see, the biggest slide on the bottom is practical help, and that's a real big part of pastoral care, and that's where everybody comes into play. Where that's all of you helping with that, and that's when we went on the course, we're talking about food rotas and. For me, this was something we've always done in River. We've always, if someone's ill or they're having a baby, we cook for them. But apparently that's not what other churches do. So
you couldn't believe it, could you? That there was food rota in that course, and it's like breathing for you, I think.
Yeah, I just shared resources. I was like, oh, look at this meal train. It's changed my life when it comes to food rotas. Yeah. And it's like, so we were sharing already on the course with the other churches, going, oh, you can use this for food rota because they'd never heard about it. So it was a real eye opener. That's something that's so normal for us is actually part of pastoral care. But it's not just that; it's other practical tasks like we said, giving lifts. Like Zoe is giving lifts to Graham while he can't drive, so he can come to church. That's part of pastoral care. There's a group of us around a church member cleaning, washing, and helping with household tasks. That's part of pastoral care. Babysitting. Max was going to babysit for us last night, but our boys are ill, so we couldn't go. But that's allowing a couple having that sort of time with each other away from the children. That is part of pastoral care, so they can, have that time together, picking up prescriptions, giving lifts to hospitals. I think you get the idea. It's all part of that practical helping each other. And that's where everybody gets involved and doesn't need any special giftings or callings to be able to do that. It's something we should all do.
Yeah. And to be honest, probably things that people do anyway. Yeah. When we did the course, there was a book that was recommended, and I'm going to read you a very familiar, I think it'll be familiar, passage. Right back in Genesis, this is. So, in the beginning of the Bible, we're told that God wanted to have a relationship with his creation, and especially with humankind. So Genesis 3, 8 and 9. They heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden at the time of the evening breeze. And the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. But the Lord God called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" And looking a bit more in this chapter, it it was sort of saying, and I thought this was so good, it's saying, where are you? Not necessarily physical, where are you, like playing hide and seek. Where are you mentally and emotionally? Where are you? So just reflect on that for a moment. Where are you right now? And we've all got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we can listen out for the words that are perhaps underneath what someone's being said, what someone is saying. We can listen, we can all listen, and that is such a gifting within pastoral care. So I really like that. Just I urge you to look back on that and think, where are you? Where is this person that I'm speaking to? Where are they? Are they hiding something? Are they anxious about something? You can ask some questions. You can be gentle and humble in your questioning, and you can find all sorts of absolute treasures about people when you stop and listen.
Yep, it's a really good one. And again, some people have a special gift for listening, but we all, as God made us with 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So we should be listening more than we're talking, which I find particularly hard. So next on the list, we've got praying. Now, all of us can pray, and we always encourage you to. Again, this can be something we all do, and we'd want you to. But then there's also times when that needs a specialist gifting. So this is kind of where we're going from the all into the some in this sort of diagram going upwards, where you kind of might need someone with a special gifting, where you've got prayer plates, for example. These are people who are specially gifted to listen and to pray for you. Or the teams that go around to people's houses to pray over the house or specific situations. So it's the kind of thing where you need a special gifting to do that. And then we kind of move into a bit more for specialist support, don't we?
Yeah, and on that, I think most of you know Richard Whiffin, and for years he got alongside Peter and Anne and was really supportive, both emotionally, spiritually, but very practically as well. And, we're not all in a position to offer that much of our time that he clearly offered a lot of time. But there are some people within the church who might be. So, and there are some people outside of the church, specialists. Am I going too far here? Yes, I thought so. You've got that look. So anyway, back to Richard and Peter. And if you don't know them, Richard just above and beyond, I would say, with his assistance of Peter, and they're good friends with his family still. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's where you kind of, when you get to specialist pastoral support, that's where the some and the few come into play, where we're not expecting everybody to do that. It's where, those teams come into play. And then you've got, right at the top there, you've got situations where pastoral care simply isn't enough. As I said last week, we cannot replace specialist services like counselling or addiction services. That's not within our remit. And we're simply recognising where our boundaries are here. It doesn't mean we stop walking with that person. We still walk alongside them, but we're just bringing someone else in that can help them in a professional way that we can't. But as you can see, it's like the tip of the iceberg there. It's like hopefully, most of this can be covered by the church.
Yeah, can I say something here that's not down here? So with regard to that, referrals, we are compiling a list. Can I say this? Yeah. We're compiling a list of all sorts of specialist services around Maidenhead, around this area. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I wonder if they've heard of this one, then please let us know, because obviously that list is an invaluable resource for us all. Okay, and we thought that rather than it just being us, we'd ask for a couple of volunteers. We have prepped them before, I will say that. So if you're sitting there in fear and trepidation, don't worry too much. Emma, Emma, hello, and could you briefly tell us? Hello, good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
I wonder if you could briefly tell us about the pastoral support you received and how it made you feel.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
no problem. So I'll go with the most recent one because that's easy to remember, so I'll start there. So obviously I had an operation, I think it was the beginning of February, about 10, 11, 12 weeks ago. And Heike kindly set up a meal train for me, which I was a bit like, oh, I don't know, I don't think I really need that. But as it turned out, it was a massive blessing. So I'm a single mum and I've got 2 kids, although they're older. One of them's got a lot of health issues and stuff. So it was always going to be pretty challenging to go for the operation. In fact, I nearly didn't go for the operation based on my personal circumstances. But luckily, my amazing surgeon said, do it. So I did. And Heike was like, we'll do meal train. We'll get some help for you. And it was brilliant. I had 2 weeks of home-cooked meals, as I think I spoke about it the other day at church. It was a massive blessing. Kind of like one of the things that everybody that I was talking about the operation with kept saying was, oh, have you got any help? And you're like, that's such a randomly open, like non-specific question. Have you got any help? Oh yeah, like all this whole team that are going to move in with me and like do everything. Yeah, it's great, you know. And it's like, what is that question even mean? Like, and I think people are just like, they just don't know how to support you, do they, or what to sort of suggest. So people are like, oh, you're not going to be able to do anything. Have you got any help? Well, I suppose the short answer would be not really. But actually, I was able to say, actually, my church are cooking for me every single night for 2 weeks. And a lot of people were really, oh, wow, like they're going to do that. And I was like, yeah, that's what we do in my church family. If somebody has a baby or somebody has an operation, they cook and they set up a meal train for a couple of weeks. So it was a massive blessing. Yeah, thank you. And it was amazing, which I did talk about the other day and said thank you. Some amazing chefs in the church. And it was great. Even me and my husband are separated, but he was like, I'm going to go to work all day. And he's older than me, has a really physical job. He has to be there really early in the morning and he works up on like massive roofs all day on like huge period type buildings and in the freezing cold. And he's like, don't worry, I will do everything. And I'm like, I think that's a little bit unrealistic. Right. Yes. But how do I, and he's like, no, I'll walk the dogs. I'll do everything at home. And I was like, that's like not going to happen. Yeah. It's impossible, really. So he actually would come in the door after work, come round to my house, which he obviously doesn't normally, but he'd come and get the dogs. And I'd be like, there's some leftovers from yesterday's food, or I've just had this delivered. And he would literally like collapse in the sofa and eat a really good hot meal and then be able to go. So, it was a blessing for our whole family. Even the kids were like, oh, someone's bought you goo desserts. Do they do that at your church? And I was like, yeah, help yourselves, guys. Mum doesn't buy this food, but they do. So it's great. Yeah. So that was the most recent one. And then, which was lovely and a huge blessing, obviously. And then the other one was, it was actually a year ago, wasn't it? It was a year ago when Heike very kindly set up a pastoral prayer team to come to my house. And I think I did speak about it a while ago, but I was a bit of a wreck when I talked about it. Because it was a massively powerful, I think I can use that word quite confidently. It was a very powerful situation. The outcome was, profoundly, what did my dad say when I told him about it? When I was getting baptized, he was like, what's all this baptism stuff about? Because I haven't been brought up in a sort of a religious community, family. Told him about the situation that happened, didn't we, with the prayer team? And his words after listening were, and he's a complete atheist, his words were, that is undeniably either what is it called? A coincidence, you call it a God incident. He said coincidence, obviously, or it's a holy intervention. And I said it was hands down a holy intervention, Dad. It wasn't a coincidence. So that was a very powerful situation. And it's quite emotional to talk about. But yeah, the situation was undeniably shifted hugely by Heike, Paul. Yeah, they just pray. Yeah, they came into the house and prayed, didn't they? I don't know what happened when Paul and Steve bravely went into my son's room, but something happened in there. Yeah, the transformation was insanely huge. It was a big shift, and that's so a year later. Just for the update, a year later, we're still not in a good place at all, but the change that happened was so significant, and I'm quite confident to say he hasn't slid back to where we were. So he wasn't sleeping at all, was he? He couldn't sleep at all. This had been going on for months. He literally could not sleep. He would quite often still be awake at 3 or 4 a.m., which I don't know if, that's probably the fastest way to pretty much insanity, isn't it? To not have any sleep at all. No sleep. He couldn't eat. He literally was not able to eat at all. And he quite often wasn't staying at home. So most of the time he was out of the house all night. He was gone. He actually had a very close relationship with a friend, and he was often there. So I knew where he was. And he actually, I can't believe, looking back, when you're in a situation so deeply enthralled in it, you can't see what's going on. And I think what the prayer team did is they came in and they just magically, not magically, but healed that situation. He was in a really bad way. And he even talked about when he was staying at the friend's house, like seeing things and hearing things. And so it was pretty traumatic and very dark. And you guys came that one. I think you came 3 or 4 times in fairly quick succession because it was serious. But that one first was a huge shift. He stayed at home that night. He woke up the next day and ate, and he started going to school off his own back. He hadn't been at school, so But that night he stayed at home, didn't he? I was like, Heike, Heike, you're not going to believe this. He's actually said, Mum, I'm going to stay at home tonight. He woke up and ate. He phoned his dad the next day. They hadn't spoken to each other barely for months. And he's like, Dad, do you fancy a dog walk? It was insane. It was just amazing. So, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing all that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. Thanks.
Yeah, we've got a couple of pastoral carers. Thank you, Emma. Thank you. And do keep praying for Emma and her family, because it's definitely, prayer just really works, doesn't it? Yeah. Prayer's amazing. We've got a couple of pastoral carers. I'm happy to share a little bit. Should we start with Fran?
Yeah.
And you want to come up? For me, okay.
Yeah.
So Fran is on the pastoral care team, as you saw up there. And it was just about sharing a little bit about how it makes you feel, what is for you when you are a pastoral carer rather than these situations.
It prompts me to wake up and pray for people in the middle of the night. And I listen. And I show them that I care. And practical help when I join in the meal train. And when a new babe's born, there's usually a cardigan or a bonnet or a hat for them. And
that you've knitted.
That I've knitted, yes.
Yeah.
And I've and one mum, Rebecca Caribou, I've not pronounced that right. She said to me the other day, I was so grateful for the bonnet and the matinee jacket that you knitted for me when I had a winter baby, because I needed that, hat for the child. So that's my practical help. And other things that I can do practically.
Yeah, and there are things, Fran, the knitting, you really enjoy knitting, and then to have a purpose for something you've knitted, to go and support somebody else, that's a real blessing to you, I think, as well. Yeah.
Yes, it works both ways, doesn't it? We love our Fran Duncan cardigan. Yeah. That's what they're called in our house. Yeah. Because you can pick them out. Because they're just so sweet and usually have like cute little buttons. Yeah. Right, and Janet, you want to come up the front?
Hi, yes. And so for me, when spending time with people, it's actually just understanding that sometimes people just need you to stand with them. And actually, I need people to stand with me. So, this church have been very kind, come and prayed with me. When I was ill, did put hot food on my doorstep and chocolate. But what it does is you don't understand how much light there is, as in not darkness, light in kindness. And I think what we hold as Christians is we can be kind to people and say we'll do that in the name of Jesus. And with that comes that power, comes that peace, comes that acknowledgement. You know that bit in the Lord's Prayer where it says, let your kingdom come. And I think pastoral care, either me receiving it or giving it, it creates kingdom. And it's a very strong thing that that's a very tangible way I express my faith and also put that into worship, put that into praying. As Fran says, it does, when you hear stories, you can't not hear them. You have, in some ways, a bit of a responsibility to then actually give that problem or that concern of that person's to God. And I just want to bring another point out, and they call it psychologically compassion fatigue. And there's a bit in the Bible where it says, if you love your friends, and it's a pretty harsh words of Jesus, what reward will you get? We are designed as human beings to love one another. It's normal to love. But what reward we have? So what will we do when we actually love people or show care to people who don't actually deserve that? And it is hard because there is a thing, and we all know it, that you can be treated like a doormat. And that's not right, and we need to have respect in ourselves for that. But I always find that giving and receiving care is probably one of the ways I tangibly meet with God.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Both Fran and Janet, thanks for sharing.
And I noticed when Janet said about light, you turned to Robin. Do we want?
Well, it was the kindness that because it said kindness conquers all that Janet mentioned, and the light. And Robin had a word. Actually, do you want to share that? The word you had earlier in the prayer meeting? No, the one about the garden lights.
Garden lights, yes.
The much rehearsed sermon going on here. We were praying earlier, and it just struck me that last evening we had a few friends round to our house, and we were sort of preparing the garden for it as a sort of first stage of spring. And a part of that for us was we'd bought these lanterns which suck in solar energy, and then in the darkness they then let out light. And we've hung a number of these, a goodly number of them, around the garden in the hope that they would beautify the garden as the darkness fell and we could have these lights. And just it struck me that actually this is a sort of, if you like, an image of our Christian lives, and that these lanterns are us and the sun is God, and we are exposed to God. And in doing that, we take in something of the nature of God into ourselves. And so that when we're in the right position, we then let out light ourselves. We can't help it. It's the nature of being a Christian in relationship with God. And whilst the light is a dimmer version of the sunlight, it's still light. It brings light into a dark place. And I just thought that was an image that might encourage all of us. And we're talking about witness, and we've been through a series where we've been talking about the E word, evangelism, and all the rest of it. And certainly I would imagine most of us here who spent any time as a Christian living amongst other people would have been surprised by how much just being in the presence of other people, they notice God in us. Really? And I would be surprised if most, if not all of you, have some sort of story to tell where somebody has probably surprised you, as happened to me. I was in the army for many years, and There was nothing like, as an officer, my soldiers telling me off if ever I did something which they didn't think was Christian. And it barely occurred to me, because I didn't actively witness to being a Christian in front of them, I didn't think, but they were very aware of it. And it highlighted to me just this thing that we are lights reflecting the relationship we have with God the Father, in a sense, whether you like to be or not. That is the nature of being a Christian, and just to encourage us all that we can, in this environment, be pastoral lights to support each other.
Thank you, Robin. That's actually, it kind of tells you that we are all called to, walk in evangelism like we talked about weeks ago, but also all called to, walk in pastoral care with each other. And, if there's this, and you don't need any specialist knowledge to do that, to walk alongside people. But if you do hit a stumbling block in your life and you need some more help, then do come and speak to any of these people on the screen. They're there. That's the team that's there to help you and walk with you more closely than you might already getting from other people.
Yeah, and we have mentioned small groups before. We've got some questions for the small groups. And actually, I'm going to share, this is something that Jonathan prepared. And I read these questions through, and they're just awesome, because he's gone above and beyond, I would say. He's done some questions, he's referenced the Bible in them, and he's referenced how they are showing pastoral care. So enjoy those in your small groups over the next few weeks. And right now, we've got into the habit the last few weeks, Heike, of praying with each other. So some of you I've seen have gone up for prayer at the back there, but this is our opportunity to just team up with one person and to pray for them. And obviously, if there's an odd number, please have a 3. But God said to me yesterday, because I was thinking, should we get them all standing up, walking around, finding someone they've never prayed for before? And he said to me, no, don't do that. They can pray for somebody they know. And I'm sorry, this is sacrilege, I know, but they don't have to say, if you know the person you're sitting next to, if you're married to them, for instance, you don't have to feel that you've got to say, what's your name? And I'm also going to say that for some people, Heike, I'll just move away a bit. For some people, actually closing your eyes during prayer, maybe not for the whole time, and I think that's really what you were getting at. For some people, that's just a very natural thing, just to sort of concentrate a little bit. If you've got your eyes closed the whole time, obviously that person could have run away by the time you've finished, But don't worry, please don't make rules out of how to pray. But I will also say, Heike, very nicely written out. And here we have them again. And I hope you can see that. Scott? Yes?
I'll go.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I thought you were saying hold the microphone closer to your mouth.
No, I could do that as well.
Okay.
The Bible talks about when one part of the body hurts, the whole body hurts.
Yeah.
And earlier you were talking about sometimes people are quite hurt and find it difficult to speak out.
Yes.
And very difficult to listen to. So what happens when you're someone in a church? You might not be part of a home group. You might be on the fringes. You might be a visitor. Mm-hmm. And you go unseen, unlistened to, unspoken to. Mm. And when you come up with questions like this, they run a mile. Because actually they're so damaged they can't speak. Mm-hmm. And what happens then in terms of pastoral care in being able to reach out to that person?
Yeah, very good point. And I think this is where, rather than this organic way we've been, perhaps, to have a structure does help. And so if it were me, Scott, if I was praying for somebody and they ran a mile in effect or just closed down, I might mention that to one of the faces that we've seen and say, you know, I'm a bit worried about that person. How could we reach out? How could we help them? And so, yeah, this isn't a perfect system, but we just really hope, and our intention is that by having a structured pastoral care team, that will happen less. And if you've got ideas for how that can be better done, then please share them. But thank you, that's a really good point to have made. You know, and you might be sitting there yourself thinking, yeah, I am that person that Scott's described. And as I said before, you can't always for yourself, you know, ask for help. I know I was in a very bad place at one point. I didn't know I needed help, but other people saw that and offered it or spoke about it to someone who could. So, Scott, thank you. That is really, really important. Heike.
Also, we, as a leadership team, we have a list of people who are not in a small group. So as long as you're part of the church, we do have a list that we, you know, not every month, but, you know, we have at least once since been through to just look at people and going, okay, so who is this person covered by? Is there anyone covering them? Or, you know, have asked someone that they know to just check in on them because we don't have that relationship with them, but gone to someone else that they know and gone, would you mind checking in with that person just because we think they're having a hard time, but we don't have the relationship to go and speak to them because there's someone on the fringe or not quite, you know, embedded. So we try, but it's, you know, we're open to suggestions.
Yeah,
if there's someone you're worried about, come and talk to us.
Okay, and if you have any other questions and maybe they haven't occurred to you yet, or maybe you're sitting there not quite comfortable to say them, then please do, you know, Heike and I are here today. Some of the pastoral care team, the some are here today, and I would really recommend that you speak to them.